Scripture reading for today is 3 different verses, all of them in Proverbs. The first one is Proverbs 14:29, and this particular one is from the New Living Translation. Yours may be worded just a little differently than that. But it says, "People with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness." Okay. Now I will move to Proverbs 16:32. And this one is from the New King James, and it says, "He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city." And then I will turn to Proverbs 27, verse 3. And this one says, also from New King James, "A stone is heavy and sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than both of them."
By the way, this is a picture of my front yard on the new earth, okay? And I just want you to know that's what I plan to have for my front yard. I hope you like that. You can come visit me there. I think it'll be a very peaceful place to sit down and have a conversation, okay? I found that picture and I said, man, I'd love to have a yard like that now, but I can have it then, and my flowers will not fade and die. They will be there all the time. So I have a question to begin my conversation, and I want you to participate. How many of you have gotten angry in your lifetime? All right. I think you all raised your hands. I was trying to look quickly to see if there was anybody that didn't. Let me ask a second question. How many of you believe that somebody can make you angry? Okay? Those are questions that I used to ask my students in my own classroom, and when I was substituting, I would ask those questions. And almost all the hands of the kids would go up. Yeah, somebody can make me angry, and you could always see kind of what was going on in their heads. They could tell you that too. I want you to think of this. This is the whole point of my conversation. Don't be angry. It's your choice. Just ponder that for a minute, okay? Now, some of you might not agree with that, but I'm hoping at the end of this conversation, you might have a different perspective, all right? Here's a list of words that are often used to describe this very negative emotion. I'm not going to read through them, but skim through them with your mind. Some of them are kind of old-fashioned, conniption. Some of us old-timers know what a conniption is. If you told that to a 10-year-old, they have no idea what you're talking about. Or down below, a miff or a tiff, okay? A lot of them are very familiar. These are all words that describe a negative emotion. I challenge you to tell me there's one positive emotion on there that makes you feel better or gives you happiness or that you can smile while you're feeling that feeling. Just doesn't happen. We act and think based on certain beliefs that we have. Now, I want you to look at this, and I want you to ask yourself this question. Do I believe this belief? I must be loved and approved by practically everyone significant in my life, and if not, it's terrible, awful, and I can't stand it. I get angry. That's what those last 3 expressions are. How many of you believe that? No hands. Okay? Now, if I hadn't shown that to you and I just said it, you might have a different opinion. But look at this. I must be loved and approved. Is that really true? Let me give you an illustration here. There's this teenager girl. She gets up and she dresses in the big holey pants and raggedy shirt and doesn't really do a whole lot with her hair, and she takes off and walks down the road to go to school. And on the way to school, she passes this drunk bum standing against the wall. And he looks at her, and he looks her up and down, and he says to you, "You look like a bag of rags." And she keeps right on walking. Doesn't bother her at all. She gets to school, and she goes down the hallway, and then this young man that she kind of likes comes and looks at her up and down and says, "You look like a bag of rags." And she gets angry. Why? The words are exactly the same. Two different people, and one is significant to her, and the other one is not. Can you understand that if you had your brother or even your mother say something that was a kind of a put down or a slam, it would be more hurtful than having some John Doe that you've never met before on the train or on the airplanes say the same thing? It wouldn't bother you. Maybe it would. We'll get to that maybe a little bit later. But in reality, this is a false belief. But a lot of people act on that belief and choose to get angry based on that belief. I'm going to be summarizing these, so if you want to write them down, you can. Here's another one. I must not make errors and do poorly. And if I do, it's terrible, awful, and I can't stand it. How many of you believe that one? Well, this person is what we would call the perfectionist. And they really don't get angry at somebody else. They get angry at themselves. They are the kind of person who expects to get an A on the test. And if they get a C, they get angry. Not at the teacher or somebody else. They get angry at themselves. And they beat up themselves mentally. And they go into depression and woe is me. It's really a self-directed anger. But it's not true. Here's the third one. People and events must be the way I want them to be. And if they aren't, it's terrible and awful, and I can't stand it, and I choose to get angry. Is that true? No. That is a false lie. And yet, probably this is the most common belief that people act on when they choose to get angry. And if you look back, even in the last 24 hours, if you found yourself getting angry, is this true? Was something not the way you wanted it to be? Did somebody do something that you didn't like? We all act on this. Probably, I would guess 80 to 90% of the time, this is the reason why people choose to get angry. All right. Those are all false beliefs, but we act on those. I want to challenge you with some true beliefs. We said, I must be accepted by every significant person in my life. That's really not true. And I must not make errors or do poorly. That's really not true. And people and events must be the way I want them to be, or I get angry. That's not true either. Let's look at something that's true. Here's the true statement. It's nice to have love and approval, but I can accept myself and enjoy myself without it. Ponder that for a minute. All right? Can you live without somebody's approval? Well, Jesus was not accepted by every person in his life, was he? He was ridiculed. He was lied about. He was called illegitimate and spit on and hit on and nailed. He certainly was not loved and approved by everybody, but he knew who he was. And he knew the Father loved him, and the approval and the love of the Father was the only thing that was important to him. Do you understand how that could translate into your life? All right? There may come a time where you will be rejected by every human being, but you can know that you are loved and approved by God. Does not your Bible say we are sons and daughters of God? That's where you really need to focus in on getting your approval. Okay? And what does your Bible say about God's love? Is it temporary or does it go on forever? It goes on forever. Jeremiah 31:3 says, I have loved you with a everlasting love. Isn't that a comfort to know? It's nice to have love. So you could say, well, it would sure be nice if my mom really loved me. But that's okay. I know who I am. I'm a daughter of God. Okay? I don't have to be approved by everybody. Doing things well is satisfying, but it is human to make mistakes, and I can learn from them. Isn't that the truth? Don't we all make mistakes? Jesus was a child, and his father taught him how to do some carpentry work. Do you suppose he ever made a mistake? Did he bend a nail over? Did he cut a board crooked? Did he get angry about it? We all make mistakes. We miss a math problem. We hit the wrong chord or a wrong note. That's okay. You don't have to get angry about that because we are human and we all make mistakes, and mistakes are something that we can learn from. Did Moses make a mistake? Yes, you can some of it stay in the conversation. He made a mistake, didn't he? When he killed the Egyptian. And he struck the rock. All right, you were probably thinking of that one, okay? How about David? Did David make a mistake? Okay. Yes, he did. Did he learn from that? Yes, if you read Psalms 51, he says, Lord, look at my heart and examine me, creating a clean heart in me. How about Peter? Did Peter make any mistakes? Yes. So we could look at the Bible characters and find that everybody makes mistakes, and you can learn from them. All right? And here's the truth about the third false belief. People and events are going to be the way they are, not necessarily the way I want them to be. It is our own selfishness that makes us choose to get angry. And we believe the false idea that people and events must be the way I want them to be. No. People and events are going to be the way they are. And we respond to the event by making a choice based on a false belief or a true belief. We can't change the event. We can't change the person. We can only change ourselves. All right, we'll come back to these three beliefs a little bit later. And I think maybe I summarized them here. All right, here they are. It is nice to have love and approval, but I can accept myself and enjoy myself without it. And remember, I'm a child of God. All right, I always have His love. Another one, doing things well is satisfying, but it is human to make mistakes, and I can learn from them. And the third one, people and events are going to be the way they are, not necessarily the way I want them to be. Now, there are a couple of ideas of anger, and I've done a number of reading of things on anger. I have quite a whole file of it. We get angry because we believe it will benefit us in some way. Think about it for a minute. All right? When a child gets angry because his parent won't buy him something from the store, why is he getting angry? Does he think there will be a benefit in getting angry? Yeah, he might get the toy. And if his parent do give him the toy or candy or whatever, then what does he learn to do? Get angry again because it got a benefit for him. So we often feel like it's going to be beneficial to us to get angry. Or if a mother chooses to get angry because her child didn't do what she asked him to do, maybe clean his room, she gets angry because she thinks there's a benefit in that. And what is the benefit? Maybe the child will get busy and get it done if I'm angry enough. So she thinks there's a benefit in getting angry. And a teenager maybe gets angry when somebody, one of his people is getting angry at him. What is the benefit? Well, maybe they'll leave me alone. Okay? Let me ask you this question. Are there any benefits to be had by choosing not to be angry? I want you to think about that for a minute, okay? Are there any benefits in choosing not to be angry? Yes. All right, there's another idea here. Anger is often a result of an attack on our self-worth. Now, this one kind of relates to the first two false beliefs about not making mistakes and having to be approved by everybody. But that's really not true. If we see ourselves as not worthy of very much, we get hurt inside, and hurt causes anger. But who are we thinking about? Ourselves. And I hope you get an idea there that anger is a self-centered emotion. All right? It is a selfish motive. It's a selfish. Now, since God's self-worth is not attackable, he could not be angry as we are. I want you to ponder that for a minute. Does God ever have a question about who he is? Can any created being challenge his self-worth and make God say, oh, I wonder if he's right. Oh, no. He is not challengeable with his self-worth. Therefore, he is not thinking about himself. He always thinks about who? Others. Okay? That's an important point. He's thinking about others. All right. As I say, I'm going to be moving quite rapidly through here. Here are some ideas that I want you to think about. There are two philosophies in the world about anger. I've only found these two in all the readings that I have done. All right? One is to hide it, to be nice, stuff it, but it churns inside. It's still there, right? It's just hidden. That is one philosophy about how to deal with anger. Just don't let anybody know you're angry. Just stuff it. The other one is let it out. That's okay to let out anger. Let them know you're angry, but be sure you control it sufficiently. Those are the only two that I have really found out there. Even in talking and listening to a couple of marriage counselors when they were talking about how to deal with anger between the family members, they did not suggest anything else. Now, let me ask you this question. Of these two philosophies, when Moses did his thing, what did it cause him? Let me back up. Let me keep going, because this relates to what I had here. All right, so the red relates to the green below. Anger turned inward can result in bizarre behavior, nightmares, mania, depression, withdrawal, and even suicide. You can get angry. All of those things happen. Anger turned inward can result in physical problems for you. Headaches, high blood pressure, ulcers, sleep problems, digestive orders, and much, more. Do you see any positive things for anger there? By keeping it inside, there is not one positive benefit for you to keep anger inside. All right? What about letting it out? Anger that is let out can result in certain consequences, such as hurt feelings, damaged and broken relationships, physical harm to someone else or oneself, and bodily harm to others and property damage. Can you see that all? That's letting it out. And we can think about Moses when he got angry about the Egyptian beating the Hebrew. He let it out, and what happened? He murdered somebody. All right? What about Cain? When Cain was acting on the false belief, I must be accepted by God. God didn't honor his sacrifice. That's false belief number one. All right? And he wasn't approved of by Abel, really, too, because Abel kind of scolded him. What happened? He let it out. What was the result? Somebody died. Okay? How about Saul? When David trying to play and calm him down, what did Saul do? When he got angry, thinking that David was going to be the next king, picked up the javelin and tried to pin David to the wall. That's letting it out. Okay? And one more. I want to go way back up to Lucifer. What happened to Lucifer when he started talking about his unhappiness in heaven? There were consequences there too. I'm going to suggest an alternative to you today. One that's really not out there, and one that probably you have never heard before. The third alternative is to not experience anger at all, and to make a decision that I will not be angry. We get angry because we choose to get angry. Just want to pause there. I want you to think about that for a minute, because that's the whole point of this conversation. We choose to be angry. Okay? Now, that flies directly in the face of all of you that raised your hand and said somebody can make you angry. That is a false idea. You chose to get angry. All right? And I'm going to illustrate that. Not one person or event can make us angry, which may be contrary to what we believe. I want you to think about all the things that happened in the life of Jesus, all the things that were done to him, said about him, stoning. They tried to stone him, tried to push him off a cliff. He never got angry. He didn't even get angry when he was being nailed to a cross. Anger was not there because he was totally unselfish. He did not think about himself. Since I don't have to, I'm going to see what my next slide says. Oh, all right. That's the key point for my conversation today. We choose to get angry based on a belief, not an action or an event outside of ourselves. And let me illustrate that. I'm just going to make a scenario here of, let's say, a 12-year-old girl standing at the kitchen sink washing some dishes. And because she had some soap on one of the dishes, it slips out of her hand and goes crash on the floor and shatters one of the really nice dishes too. And just at that moment, her mother walks in and sees what has happened. And she responds to the event based on number 3. People and events must be the way I want them to be. Are you with me? And she chooses to get angry, and she yells at her daughter and says, "Why are you always breaking things? Oh, you're so clumsy. I wish you'd just be more careful." Does her anger fix the dish? No. Does her anger improve her relationship with her daughter? No. Okay, erase that. We'll start all over. Back it up. Girl standing at the kitchen sink, washing dishes. The dish slips out of her hand, crashes to the floor. Is the event the same? Yes. Mother comes in the room, looks at the dish, and says, "Oh, honey, let me help you pick it up." There is no anger in this mother. She chose not to be angry about the event, that it was identical, because she understood that the dish can't be fixed by my anger, and my relationship with my daughter is more important than that dish. She made a choice, didn't she? The event was exactly the same. So she could not say, the breaking of the dish made me angry. Yes, my daughter made me angry. False. Absolute lie. She chose to get angry. Read that again. We choose to get angry based on a belief, not on the action or an event outside ourselves. So I want you to remember these points. A person chooses to be angry because he or she perceives that their self-worth is being attacked in some way. And the only way to keep from being angry is to believe we are of equal value to the rest of humanity. And the only way to believe we are equal is to accept the equality from Jesus. Are you all equal in Jesus' eyes? Yes, then believe that. Say, I'm equal. I don't care whether he's a billionaire or not. I'm equal in God's eyes. Okay? C, the only way we can learn that Jesus values us that much is to get to know him. And the only way we can get to know him is to spend time with him every day. To see how he loved people when he walked here. I want you to think about this. Getting angry never solves a problem. It usually only compounds a problem. And we never feel good when we are angry. And we seldom feel good or right after we are angry. Isn't that the truth? Did I say anything false here? Okay? The angry mother did not fix the dish. You come up to a stop sign, and just when a four-way stop sign, and just when you start to drive, somebody goes to the stop sign and just about T-bones you, and you slam on your brakes, and he goes right on. And some people would start swearing and cussing and just lose it. Does the guy in the car know you're angry? No. Does it do you any good to get angry when he's half a mile down the road already? No. Is there any benefit in that getting angry there? Nothing. It only hurts you. It only hurts you. And what I'm going to suggest to you based on that is it takes away your peace. Like oil and water, they will not mix. You cannot have peace in your heart when you're angry. And that's why Jesus could walk around with peace in his heart all his life. In spite of the fact that the neighborhood kids probably made fun of him and called him goody-goody. The fact that his brother probably made him do some of their chores when it was their turn to do it. He had peace in his heart all the time. And I want to ask you this one question. Do you think there will be any anger in heaven? I want you to think about that. And if not there, then why live with it here? If you won't be angry in heaven, then work on not being angry here. If there's only peace in heaven, then work on having peace here. Now, there was a man who was like a college professor, and he had taken a 3x5 card like this, and on one side he had written the 3 false beliefs that I shared with you. And on the other side he wrote the 3 true beliefs. And he carried it with him in his pocket every day because he said, I want to get rid of my anger. And as he went through the day, at the end of the day, he would recall when he had gotten angry. And he pulled it out. So which one of those did I get angry on? Yeah, I should have. People in events are going to be the way they are. And then during the course of the day, when he would feel himself get angry, he would whip this card out and say, all right, why am I choosing to get angry? And what should I really believe? And he said, I got to the place where in the course of the day, the true beliefs became very natural to his thinking. So if something happened that wasn't to his liking, he would say, oh, people in events are going to be the way they are, not necessarily the way I want them to be. And he said, I got to the place where I could go through the entire day being in perfect peace. What does your Bible say? I shall remain in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on Jesus, right? And he says, I got to the place where I could go through an entire day without getting angry. His students thought he was nuts. Said, nah, you can't believe, I don't believe that. I tell you this story because he told it personally. So he said, one time I had about 6 guys in my car, and we were going to a concert. And we had to drive around the block a couple of times trying to find a parking spot. And just as we came down this street, he said there was one up ahead, and I was ready to pull into it, and some guy went zooming around me and went zip right into that space. And he says the guys in the car went ballistic. I mean, they were ready to get out and scratch that guy's car up and tell him to move his car, and he said, I just kept on driving around the block until I found another place and parked. And he says, my students came up to me and said, weren't you angry? And he said, no. And he said, well, we were all angry. I said, yeah, that was your choice. I chose not to get angry. And he said, the students looked at him and they said, you know what? You were perfectly calm the whole time, and we were just going crazy. Uh-huh. And they went back and they told all of their other students, you know what? He practices what he preaches. He does not get angry, ever. And we saw a real good reason why he could have gotten angry. And he said that going through an entire day without ever getting angry was a wonderful experience for him because now he had peace. And he didn't have to suppress anger because he chose instantly, and it's an instant choice, not to get angry. Now, I was talking with Eileen about this. There are things that happen to you and to me that can cause us to get angry. But if instantly you say, Lord, well, there was one that happened to us just the other day when we were driving on 14. This guy, I was behind a pickup, and we were going, 55. And this guy behind me took off and went around not only me, he could have pulled in between, but he went around by the other guy. Now, he put himself in danger. He put our 2 lives in danger, and he put the lives of the people in the pickup in danger. And some people would have got really angry. And the first impulse for me was to say, he shouldn't have done that. Okay? And she says that she experiences the same thing. Every time somebody passes her on 14, putting her in danger, doing something on a line that she's not supposed to be passing, she does what you and I can learn to do and say, Lord, I feel like I should get angry, but I don't want to get angry, so take away that thought now and give me your peace. And he will do that. Trust me, he will do that. I did not get angry at this guy. I did say to her, wow, I'm glad there was not another car coming. That's not an angry feeling. Okay, that's a statement of a fact, so to speak. Now, I want you to key in on some things here. I want to make it a little bit interesting for you. Because I asked my students, and for those of you who don't know, I taught grades 1 through 8 in a one-teacher school. So I had 7-year-olds all the way up to 13 and 14-year-olds, okay? And I asked them to write down what experience they had that made them mad or made them angry. Kids use the word mad instead of angry. And they wrote them out. Now, I didn't bring them. I have a stack of them in their own handwriting. Some of them a little bit tough to read because it's a little hard for a 7 or 8-year-old to write a sentence. And I typed them up. But I want to share some of them with you here. And as I share these with you, I want you to think which one of those false beliefs were they acting on, okay? I must be accepted and approved. I must not make mistakes, and people and events must be the way I want them to be. All right, here's Leslie. Yesterday I got mad at my sister. She got mad at me because I touched her. Then she hit me very hard. I got very mad. Which one of those beliefs? Number 3, right? She didn't like being hit. She chose to get angry, and what was her response to that anger? She hit her sister back. Okay? Here's another one. I got mad when Rick said my horse smoked. I asked, that's a funny one too, and I had to chuckle over that one. Rick was, I think, 7th grade at that time. I asked to go to Christina's house, and Mom said it would be wonderful, but Christina's mom said no. We had planned it all week, so when she said no, I got mad. Which one is she acting on? Number 3. Good. Some of you are still in this conversation with me. Don't go to sleep here. I got some goodies here. Oh, and she also wrote this on the PS. And I'll get mad if you read this in front of the classroom. That was my daughter. That was my daughter that wrote that one. All right. And Christina said, I got angry when my sister broke my glass toy. So I got so mad and I told on her. There's one action. But she really didn't mean to, little sister. So my mother didn't do anything. And then I really got mad and I went outside. So what's she doing there? That's right. Somebody's with a conversation. Stuffing it inside, right? Stuffing it inside. First of all, she let it out by saying, Mom, okay? So that didn't work out very well. Lacey said, I got angry because Jacob was hitting me with a fly swatter. I told him to please stop. He wouldn't stop, so I took it from him. Jacob got angry and he picked up a fork and threw it at me. What's happening here? Oh, yeah, for sure. Anger gets anger. All right? Anger gets anger. And there's outward action. Let it out. Yeah, you see this. You're with me. You're catching on here. Jack. Now, there's a lot of siblings in here, okay? And Lacey was the oldest, and Jacob was the youngest, and he, in my classroom, was Jack said, my sister had some of my magazines, and I wanted them, so I asked her for them, but she said that they weren't mine and that I didn't have any. I got very angry at her, but I did not say anything. I just went away fuming. Based on what I've shared earlier, you see what's happening here? He stuffed that one. Okay? He stuffed that one. Now, here's his sister. She was 8th grader. When I was in the 3rd and 4th grade, I made a poster in art and worked tremendously hard on it. I put the poster on the outside of my door, and then one day, Jack and I got into a fiery fight, and I finally kicked him out of my room. In his rage, He ripped the precious poster off the door into shreds. I was extremely mad, angry, and hurt because I had worked so hard and he had ruined it in 5 seconds. So I ran to the kitchen yelling at the top of my lungs just exactly what he had done and what I thought she should do with him. And I finally ended up in tears. Unfortunately, anger didn't bring my poster back. Do you see what's happening here? Anger begets anger, begets anger, and bad things happen when people get angry. Well, one night, Courtney's talking about her brother, Alan and I got into a fight. I think we were fighting over something very stupid. She was one of my older students, and Melody was an 8th grader. We were fighting over who got the last lunch bag. I had to chuckle when I read some of these when they came into the papers. Well, we started hitting each other, and he was crying because I hit him very hard in the stomach. And, of course, he hit me back. Also, he started it first, as usual. I never started it. Angie ran and told my mom in full detail. I imagine she probably added something that she thought ought to have happened. My mom came out and yelled at me. She told us to hug, and naturally I didn't want to hug, such a nerd. Anyway, I thought he was a nerd, so I didn't. So my mom said, fine, if you don't want to hug him, go to bed. It was 6:50 p.m., and it was not my bedtime. I felt very stupid going to bed. Later on, my dad came home and came in. He told me to think about what I did. So I did. And I thought it was pretty stupid what I did. Do you see some maturing going on here? Some good internal evaluations of my older students. Okay? But when the anger was going on, nothing there. Oh, it just reminded me. I had on the front of my classroom so they could see it. I had this in every classroom. I put it up there. You must be self-controlled or you must be other-controlled. Otherwise, you will be out of control. I want you to ponder that. And I explained it to my students. If you have self-control, I don't have to have much of anything to say to you. You'll be quiet. You'll do what you need to do. That's being self-control. But if you're throwing things around the room and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then I have to control you. Because if I don't control you and you don't control you, then you are out of control. Make sense? They got it. They got it. All right. Jenny. One time I got blamed for something I didn't do. That didn't really happen to any of you? A big fake plant fell down, and I did not do it. But my mom and dad did not think so, but I got in trouble anyway. And then I got angry. All right, why did she get angry? Which one of the false beliefs? No, not really. Number one, she got angry because her parents were not loving her. I must be approved by every significant person in my life, and she got blamed for something that wasn't her fault. Okay? All right, I'm going to have to wrap this up here. These are really funny. I just wanted to share some of you. Okay? All right, I'll skip one more. One here. Melanie. Once I got angry at my brother because he didn't do what I wanted him to do. People and events must be the way I want them to be. I wanted him to go out of my room, and he didn't. So I pushed him out of my room and said that he was a brat. And then I went and sat down on the couch in my room. He came in again without knocking, so I slapped him, and he bit me. So I got angry at him, and I bit him, and he pinched me. This is a classic illustration of what anger does for you. Elena saw us and told Mom on us. And we both hit her because we got angry at her, And we both said we hated her. And she said, so what? I was so angry at my mom and dad because they punished me by grounding me to my room. I was mad at everybody. Is there any peace here? No peace here. No peace whatsoever. None. Here's a method to remove anger. I don't want to leave you with saying without this, all right? Number one, recognize the false belief and that you can change it. Stop acting and thinking on the basis of the old belief. You substitute the rational belief for the old one. And then you act on the light of the new one. People and events are going to be the way they are. I choose not to be angry about it. Because my anger changes nothing. It doesn't benefit me. It's only harmful. You continue to believe the rational new way, even though it feels phony to act this way. And this will cause a new belief to become real and a part of your natural behavior if you persist. You ask God for His Holy Spirit to remove your tendency to get angry. Anything is possible for God to do. Isn't that what your Bible says? If you want to get rid of your anger, don't tell yourself, I can't do it. I was born angry. God says, if you want to get rid of your anger, I'll help you. Just like the thief could say, Lord, I don't want to steal anymore. He can help that. And he can help the alcoholic. If the alcoholic says, Lord, I don't want to drink anymore. All things are possible through Christ who strengthens me. Because you can't do it on your own. You and I can't get rid of our anger on our own. I'm going to summarize this as a good teacher. We choose to be angry. We therefore can choose not to be angry. Are those both reasonable sentences? Okay. We can replace the false beliefs with realistic beliefs. Anger does not benefit us at all. At all. Read that again. Anger does not benefit us all. It changes nothing. If somebody called you a jerk and you choose to get angry, it doesn't stop the fact that he called you a jerk. But you can say, I'm a child of God. I choose not to get angry. That's his problem. That's what I told my students. I said, you guys could call me a jerk 1,000 times. Wouldn't make me a jerk, would it? So why should I believe your lie? Another one. Anger is bad for us and for those who receive the force of our anger. Anger does not solve the problem. This illustration that I just shared with you. Hitting, biting, tattletaling, hitting, biting, yelling at. Anger does not solve the problem. It only increases it. It often makes the situation worse. Do you find in your own thinking about anger, and the last time you were angry, are these true? Does it make it worse? Does it really solve anything? Therefore, there will be no anger in heaven, so why not practice living without it here and now? It is possible to do this. Philippians 4:13. All things are possible. Practicing living by the new beliefs will make them a way of life. We will experience a new way of peaceful living, which is heaven's way of living. Jesus says in John 14:27, I think, my peace I give unto you, not as the world gives, but as I give. He was wanting to give us a peaceful existence here and now. Next time, as I said, there's 3 parts to this. Next time, What does the Bible say about anger? She read 3 texts. I have a whole bunch of them that I want to share with you next time, which will be August 10, Lord willing. Is there counsel to get rid of it? Oh, yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is. There's plenty of counsel, and you'll see that. What does the Lord's messenger say about that? That's part 3. Is there a proper kind of anger? We'll talk about that too. Because invariably somebody will say, well, what about when Jesus went into the temple or when Moses threw the tablets down? We'll talk about that. And what kind of anger did Jesus have? We'll talk about that. It was a selfless anger. Okay? And what are you going to do about your anger from this point forward? I have one last story that I want to leave with you. Don't go away. All right? Yeah, wait a couple of minutes. This illustrates the story. I want to make it very practical for you. Okay? There was a young woman who was at an airport, and she was waiting in the waiting room. And she knew she had a long time to wait, so she decided she'd go buy a book. And she got up and she went and bought a book, and she thought, I'll buy a bag of cookies. And so she bought a bag of cookies. And then she went and she found a quieter little room, and she sat down and began to read her book. And then she said, oh, I got the cookies. And so she reached over and she opened the bag and she took out a cookie and started to read it. And there was a man sitting on the other side of this little table. So there was a chair and a table and a chair. And there was another man sitting over there. And he reached in the bag and took out a cookie too and started to eat it. Well, she felt a little angry about this, but she didn't say anything. Kept it inside, see? She thought, Boy, this guy has a lot of nerve to eat my cookies. And if I wasn't self-controlled, I'd tail him off or I'd punch him. And each time she reached in the bag and got out a cookie, he would reach in the bag and get a cookie. And as this went on, she began to really get angry. And in fact, the more it happened, the more cookies that she ate and the more cookies that he ate, she became really infuriated. That was one of those words on the screen. But she didn't say anything because she didn't want to make a scene there in public. But she said nothing, but she was extremely angry inside. And when there was one cookie left, she thought to herself, I wonder what this man will do now. But before she had much time to think, the man reached in the bag and took the last cookie and broke it in half and gave it to her. Well, that was just too much for her. She was so angry that he had eaten her cookies, and now he had the nerve to split her last cookie and take half of it himself. She got up and she grabbed her stuff and she went off in a huff. That's another word for anger, I guess. Well, it was a short time. The intercom says, it's time to board. So she got on the plane and she sat down in her seat and she reached into her purse to get her lip balm out. And lo and behold, her bag of cookies was in her purse. She felt so ashamed then, and she realized she had been the one that was stealing his cookies, and she had forgotten that she had put hers in her purse. And the man had divided his cookies to her without ever getting angry. He was polite and he was courteous. And the whole time that she was being angry, she was miserable and she was blaming him for something that she was the one guilty of stealing his cookies. And she had no opportunity to apologize to him. But she sat there and thought to herself, she said, Her getting angry was for no good reason at all. And she said, he had every right to get angry, but he didn't get angry. Because he was thinking about somebody else, not himself. And she was thinking about herself and not somebody else. And she knew right then that this man acted more like Jesus than she did. And from that time forward, she prayed to God, God, you need to help take away my anger. So I leave you with the thought, what are you going to do with your anger if it comes up again? It is well with my soul. Does it sound like peace is in that person's heart? Yes, it does. In spite of that man wrote the song, losing all of his children and drowning them when a boat went down. It is well with my soul. I wanted you to look at that last slide. I want you to think about this today as you go. The wise man said, do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of who? How many of you want to be a fool? Solomon, you'll see next time, Solomon has a lot to say about people who get angry are fools. Ecclesiastes 9:7. Father in heaven, your desire for us is to live in peace as Jesus lived in peace of mind. That anger is a sinful, selfish emotion. That we can get rid of it with your help and live a peaceful life. Pray that you will impress upon everyone who listened to this message to think about how they want to relate to the anger that they have today and tomorrow and the rest of their lives. May each of us desire to live anger-free is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.